Hey YouTube, I'm author Alex Ross. So you want to be a writer, or you're at least interested in the subject, or you're thinking about it. Well, I'm relatively new to the process. In fact, my first book isn't coming out until the 21st. I'm still a newbie. I'm still a baby in this process. So what gives me the right or the privilege to give anybody advice? Well, being that I've gone through this process for about 2 years, and if you're watching this video right now, odds are you're probably new and you're scared and you're young and you're naive, just like I am. So you can take what I have to say with a grain of salt. But I know what you're going through because I'm going through the same stuff that you have either been through or getting ready to go through. So here are my top 5 tips for writing. First of all, and none of these are in any particular order. It doesn't mean that number 5 is more important than number 1. These are just top 5 tips that I would give personally to anybody who wants to be a writer. And first of all, I would highly recommend that you join a writers group. I joined a writers group roughly about 6 months ago. It's headed by author Ryan Ireland, and he's absolutely brilliant. If you get the chance to check out his book, Beyond the Horizon, I'd highly recommend it. But the thing is, when you join a writers group, you get to meet all these really interesting people. Like I write horror fiction, but let's say you got 5 other people in there. You get exposed to all sorts of different styles. It could be science fiction, romance. Western, all sorts of stuff. So you get all sorts of different views on how writing styles work. So me writing horror, if I'm handing my work to somebody that writes romance, he or she is going to look at it with a completely different eye, and I think that's terrific for whatever work you have. And the same thing for you. You get to read different subjects that you wouldn't normally get to read. Like I really don't care for romance. I have nothing against it, but it's really not my thing. But I've gotten to read more genres than I ever have before through this writers group, and I've even gotten to like the different variations that people have brought to the genres that I'm not really all that familiar with. And secondly, start small. Okay, let me tell you something. Stephen King did not start out with The Stand. This is a gargantuan book. No writer in their right mind would start out with something this big for their first project. I mean, come on, it's at least 1,400 pages. Now you start out with Carrie, which is significantly less. And another way you could start small is start with short stories. I wrote short stories for my first book, and the main reason I did that because a lot of the authors I look up to started their careers with short stories. Like for example, Clive Barker did the Books of Blood, and they're a collection of short stories, and I think that's the best way to help uh, I don't know, strengthen your writing tools. It's like I've compared my very first short story to my most recent one, and there's a huge progression, and it's easier to see that through different short stories as opposed to writing one long book. Now, I didn't start tackling writing a full-on book until maybe about 6 or 7 months ago. And the reason was because I had this idea for my main character, and I knew that he was so big and so important that I knew Kurt had to be really fleshed out, not only for the reader but in my mind. So what I did was I wrote 5 short stories about him, all which were not necessarily connected, but of course set in the same universe. So the thing is, now I know more about the character. Even if these stories don't really get published or see the light of day, they're important because they get to flesh out the character in your mind. So really, whatever helps the character is better. I mean, even if the material doesn't make it to book form, it's immensely helpful. It's worth the hard work to write a 20-page short story about one of your main characters. And my key thing is I really like to find inspiration in other work. I mean, I'm not saying go watch The Lord of the Rings of Hobbit and copy what Peter Jackson has done, or read a book like Game of Thrones and just copy what George R. R. Martin has done. No, have your own voice, but it's okay to have inspiration. I mean, even top writers like Clive Barker and Stephen King draw inspiration from writers like H.P. Lovecraft and Mary Shelley. And who knows, 40 years from now, whoever's on top, they're going to be drawing inspiration from King and Clive Barker, and then the cycle will keep going on and on. I mean, it's hard to be original anymore, but the thing is, when you're writing, let's say you're doing vampires. Vampires is a very big thing right now. But what makes your story unique is the characters and how they react to the world of vampires, or maybe you add something new to the vampire's ability, or you take away something, or you put a different spin on it, whatever. So don't be afraid of copycatting, but also make sure you don't do it on purpose because you want to be unique. But it's okay to draw inspiration. My big inspiration is actually from filmmaker John Carpenter. I really enjoy, love his work. His work has influenced my writing more than any other author has actually done. And he's a film director, and yeah, he writes too. But I think the way he directs films has really resonated with me. And I like doing Twitter. I think being active on Twitter and other social media, like obviously YouTube. YouTube is great. A lot of writers do blogs. I haven't done a blog. I know it's supposed to be helpful. I couldn't even begin to tell you how to do one. But I know the blogs can be helpful. A lot of writers just use it as a journal, or they post short stories. So you could do something like that. But if you're going to be on Twitter or Facebook, the key is to not bombard everybody with, "Hey, my book's coming out," and then the next day, "Hey, my book's coming out. Read my book. Go on Amazon, buy my book." No, try. My thing is, you want to sneak in talking about writing. You want it to be casual, just like posting a status on Facebook. Like, "Hey, I'm writing today, editing. I got my cup of coffee." You don't have to beat people over the head with letting them know that your book is out or coming out. Yeah, I mean, obviously tell them, but just don't make it a constant thing. You wanna be active on social media, as in, like, let's say if there's a TV show you really like I like The Flash. I like to tweet about The Flash, or another thing I tweet about a lot is Hellraiser. Hellraiser is one of my favorite film series, and I tweet about Hellraiser and Pinhead a lot. That draws in other people and other interests. So I think tweeting about your interests is important, and of course using hashtags like to draw in other followers. Because the thing that I found the most is that since I started Twitter and I started really being active on it, a lot of editors, other writers, book clubs, artists have started following me and retweeting my stuff. And the key thing is you also have to give back too. Like, another writer posts something about their book, make sure you retweet their stuff, because one, if they've done that for you, it's courteous, and two, if you do that for them, they might do it back for you in the future. And it's like I've been told by several authors that we're not in competition with each other. We're all in this together. We all want each other to succeed. It's important that we succeed, because writing is such a luxurious and important part of our culture. I think it's important that the younger and the less known writers get known. I mean,